So it brings us back to my contemplation question. What is the higher self? Where do we draw the line between showing up just as we are in full love and acceptance of that, and then also wanting to be more than that and morphing ourselves into the vision of what it is we want to be in this world? What I wanted to dive into tonight was just basically something that was on my mind, something that I was contemplating, and that had to do with authenticity and the subconscious, conscious mind. But really, diving back into my childhood, high school times, growing up, I like to self-analyze, and I found myself at a point thinking back to how many times that I have been told that I am weird or strange, or that somebody has never met somebody who thinks like me before. And although perhaps it's a fluke that people say this to me, but it has happened so many times that I've had to be cautious not to build like a complex around that, because eventually people tell you things so many times that you might just actually believe them about yourself or whatever. And for somebody to tell you that you're weird is kind of a strange thing, because that's really up to perspective. And give me the definition for what normal is, that's definitely subjective. And perspective plays a large role to what somebody, perceives that definition to be. So I don't ponder upon that too much or worry about it so much, but it does leave me still wondering why it is. But letting you in on my deep dive wavelength of thought process here between, my inner dialogue, is that you can think of times where you perceive yourself as being authentic, right? So what is that? Saying the things that you truly think, saying things that you truly feel, not thinking too much before, self-expression, although, okay, retract. Thinking before you speak is also a very good thing. So there's a fine line here, is there? I'm sure you've heard it over and over again, as I have. You are perfect just the way you are. And I do believe that is true, because, the way you are was meant to be that way. I do believe that's divine. You are this little piece of this humongous puzzle, and sometimes I theorize that if we aren't being authentic and showing up as ourselves, it is possible that we're leaving all those little pieces to this whole cosmic puzzle, the missing pieces, when we're acting like somebody else or putting on this facade of being somebody else in hope for acceptance, in hope for connection, in hope for whatever it is exactly you're looking for. But usually these are, some of the general things. So yes, of course, love yourself. You are perfect. But at the same time, perhaps you came here to actually grow even more, learn even more. And the more you learn, the more you grow, the more you're changing and shifting. And, it's like a metamorphosis. The more you're like crystallizing yourself, you're perfecting this diamond under pressure. So that's, where it comes to this almost middle ground. Where do you draw the line between self-improvement, self-acceptance, evolution, and, stagnation, for lesser or better words? If we are to complete this cosmic puzzle piece in my theory, and, this could be part of the reason so many of us have this empty void, although I don't think it's the only reason. But we are longing for connection, always. We are longing for acceptance. So that's where I kind of come to a crossroad in my thought process between the times when I'm self-analyzing myself, saying, okay, am I showing up authentically here? Because I'm very aware between my masculine aspect and my feminine aspect within myself, those two energies. I've been working with them for such a long time, way longer than I've even been conscious of, because I have identified those aspects as a young woman, young girl, way before I knew about any of the concepts or, Jungian psychology and these sorts of things. Personally, I am very passionate about psychology, and I love to learn about people. And I find when you do at least even learn basic psychology, you can start to really understand why it is that people do the things they do, why they're acting the way they're acting. Within this, I found that it definitely increased empathy within myself, this long time ago, because understanding this left so much room for me to be able to connect with other people in that way and sympathize and truly put my little feet in their booties, sort of say. When I contemplate within myself and I evaluate how I behave amongst certain people, and I really pay attention to how certain people make me feel and what reactions and emotions they're bringing outside or within me, I'm able to then really distinguish this more. But I still used to a lot more get caught between this way of wanting to be very authentic with people, and then also realizing sometimes that would trigger certain situations. But the thing is when you are being authentic, you have to allow those situations to arise. And that's what I am learning to understand. But although, it's going to depend on circumstance, because life is kind of like this game. And sometimes in order to get things you want or do certain, things in this life, you do have to play this game. You came here, perhaps so to play this game. So maybe denying everything that you may have chose, that's debatable, if you believe in reincarnation or not, that you may have came here for a reason. So to deny that and to kind of want to run away from it, could very well be error, right? It is error, I would say. So amongst my self-analyzations and transformations, I had came to a conclusion or, realization that change, true self-transformation only really comes from the inside. And that sounds fluffy to say, and it sounds quotable, and you've heard it before, but it's so much more profoundly meaningful than just hearing it alone. Within these times of me being with certain people and friend groups, analyzing the energies, I would notice once I started working on myself and really attempting to work on certain things within myself to step into that higher version of myself, that at first it felt like acting because I wasn't approaching it correctly. And it is normal that at first it feels like acting, because when you're trying to make a change in some way, a lot of the times, especially when it comes to the mind and changing the programmings within that, it feels fake at first. You don't believe it yourself. But once you really start to dive super deep and change from within, you no longer feels like an act. Perhaps you've heard the expression, don't keep your face like that. Don't make that funny face too long or it will get stuck like that. Right? And I think that has relation to what, we're talking about here, because the longer you keep on the facade, eventually it becomes you. So your authenticity can very easily be muted or washed away. So what is the higher self? Is that perhaps the true authentic self all along? Perhaps having a vision of what that is isn't necessarily the way to go about it. They always say you can be anything you want in this world, right? But let's say I want to be a public speaker, or I want to be a writer, singer, dancer, whatever it is, whatever skill I want to acquire. Most of the time, there is no easy way. It takes hard work, discipline, practice. And that's how you perfectionize the skill and you gain that great ability of mastering the skill. But if you never cultivated it, you wouldn't reach that level. And so if I want to be a public speaker, of course there are people that are naturally talented and gifted in certain areas, but even then they can still work on it, and the more they practice it, it will become much easier, more fluent, natural for them. It becomes, ingested into them, and they eat it and they become it almost. So who and what is the higher self? Is it that clean slate that you came in here with before the world placed all its impressions, opinions, and thoughts upon you? Quite debatable. Or is it that person that you evolve to and become? It seems to me that in this world, not everybody evolves. I have met people of all ages. Some of them stay the same all the time. And then some of them, you see them a couple of years down the line and you're like, wow, this person is just like completely transformed. Some people like that about you and some people won't, because they like the old version better. You got along with them before this evolution took place. Sometimes they will not resonate no longer once you, worked on yourself. Because look, I can sit here, sit straight, and speak to you differently, speak to you professionally. Hi there, welcome to my video. This is Anastasia, where we like to cover many different subjects, being occultism, spirituality, philosophy, and so much more. Please give this video a like, thumbs up, subscribe today. Help me support this channel. Trust me, guys, I know how to do it, but I don't want to do that. Maybe I will, but I don't want to. I just want to sit here and speak to you as if you're in my room. It's me and you, we're having this conversation. That's how I'm approaching this. Let's put this further into perspective. You're going to a job interview or you're going to your job. Now, certain people go about this differently. There are individuals that just show up authentically and they don't get the job because, unfortunately, the way this world works is people are judging you, right? All the time. They're judging you on the way you express yourself, on the way you look. And do I agree that the world should be like this? Absolutely not. But I still understand that that is what's happening here. So the person that goes in 100% authentic, he shows up, hair looking wild, in his torn up clothes, because that's what makes him feel good. That's what he likes. And for this person, this is their authentic self. They're not going to get that job they want. But if the person analyzes the situation and they learn what it is that that job is looking for, what qualities, what sort of person they're looking for, this would highly increase their chances of getting that job interview if they then implement certain things, behavior, presentation. They're increasing their chances of getting that job, right? So society itself, a lot of the times, isn't exactly supportive of authenticity, individuality, and being your true self, because society has created these senses of identities that we then connect with and see as who we are, whether that be your job title, your hobbies, or whatever the case, which can be extremely limiting because you are very well limitless. These are things that you like. These are things that you enjoy. These are things that you have chosen for yourself based on the circumstances of society and your environments. You can also take a psychological deep dive into, your childhood upbringing and certain elements in this area to observe why it is that you've chosen to cling onto certain identifications and titles. But all in all, if your circumstances change and the basis of normality of society change, those things and identifications may very well change as well. So it brings us back to my contemplation question. What is the higher self? Where do we draw the line between showing up just as we are in full love and acceptance of that, and then also wanting to be more than that and morphing ourselves into the vision of what it is we want to be in this world? And as I tend to do, I see it in a kind of middle pillar way. I see this in a dualistic, contradictive, paradoxical way, because through observation, life tends to work like that throughout many different facets. So perhaps observing both sides, your masculine energy, your feminine energy, and balancing this relationship and truly cultivating and working on that relationships within yourself, and coming to a balance, a true equilibrium between these two. I'm not going to get into this too much here, but the balancing between that masculine center that wants to protect you and wants to protect the feminine center, and she and that side of you wants to be expressed and feel protected and safe enough to be expressed as well. So when you come into a space mentally, physically, emotionally, of understanding how to properly have these two coexist and basically morph into one being inside of you, no longer having them as divisional aspects within the selves, but bringing them back to one is perhaps where the true authenticness lies within us all. But I don't think that completely denying these aspects of ourself is the way to have this happen. I believe that by fully understanding these aspects within ourselves more and more, that's when we can dissolve it into one, a new love. So guys, I have to wrap this up because I am fighting with storage like always, and as you can see, I'm sitting in a dark room because I don't have the proper light set up. So I really do thank you for your patience and being here at the beginning of this journey. I will be back very soon. If you'd like to hear more from me and dive into deeper esoteric topics, please visit my podcast by Apple Music. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me in regards to anything I speak about, reach out to me on EsotericEros. Give me a little bit of time and I will certainly get back to you and gladly respond to any questions. Wishing you a wonderful evening wherever you are in the world.